Most people want to understand what the best course of action is to take no money down, no money in, no risk, but they want all the glory and all the profits. And that will never happen in real estate. So understand that if you want to get in this game, there's risk, there's profits, and there's money out of somebody's pocket. How do we come in, de-risk the project, and set ourselves up for long-term success with the largest profitability and the least amount of risk? That's the biggest question. So understand that somebody's money is always at risk. Nothing gets done with no money out of pocket. There's always somebody and something that's at risk in every single project. The question is it you that's at risk? Is it somebody else's money that's at risk? Ultimately, you are the responsible party when you take somebody else's money and you utilize it on your behalf to do a project that you're going to profit from. So at the end of the day, to decrease your liability, there's always tools, resources, and ways to go in and take advantage of better financing, cheaper money, quicker projects, better management to make sure things roll smooth. But what are those things is the big question. Let's run through two of them real quick and let's see how those two items will impact your ability to get projects done correctly. You have equity and you have debt. The debt is the portion of the loan that comes from the bank. The bank comes in and finances usually between 70 and 80% of a project, typically closer to 70% in today's real day and age in 2025, depending on when you're watching this video. Now, there's the equity stack. The equity stack is the difference. It's the difference of what the bank doesn't give you on the debt. There's the equity, because typically the reason they call it the equity is because it's somebody's equity that they own. Typically that equity is your equity. Your responsibility to come out of pocket with 20 to 30% down. Now, in our minds, that's the way most people's minds think, is that I have to come up with 20 to 30% down, and that's my equity stack. That's not how investors do it. That's not how Donald Trump does it. It's not how Richard Branson does it. It's not how any of the large investors around the world do it. They raise capital with other people's money. Now, what is the cost of that capital is the question. Now, you may have an equity that you create through raising that equity, and there's debt that's on that equity, but it's still not the equity stack of your investment, okay? So don't get confused. Now, when we go in, there's two parts of this, right? You got the equity stack and you got the debt stack. What can I get the debt for the lowest, the best leverage, the most amount of money with the least amount of risk and the best terms? That's the question. That is hard, but it's the easier part of the entire project, because there's institutional money and banks out there that want these types of assets, where it's an 8 unit, whether it's 12 unit, 30 unit, 50 unit, 250 unit, 600 unit development, doesn't matter. Institutions want that type of debt because it's cash producing debt, okay? So when we go in, we always look for debt that's closer to between 6.5% on construction money to about 10%. Anything over 10% really starts to put downward pressure on us. So we try to look for debt that's under that 10% mark. Most companies try to have you come in with a certain percentage over SOFR. When you go in for the debt, you want to stay between that 6.5% to that 10% spread. You stay there. Most projects in today's day and age can pencil. Now, there's the equity side of it. So in our brains, we sat back and we go, let's go in and let's de-risk our projects by giving people real equity in the project. Now they're in it with us. They can be prideful that they're going to own a piece of this brand new 200 unit development. No investor is interested. They're like, my money has to be tied up for how long? 3 years, no returns? And they sit back and they retract. And so we sat back and said, they go, we'd rather have debt. We don't care about the equity. And we said, really? Okay. So we're excited about the passive residual income. Investors want their money back in their pocket, because if their money's not moving and working, they're not moving and working, and they don't have profitability, and it puts higher risk on their money. So we have to go back in, and now we have to pay them a higher premium for the equity in what's called preferred returns. So now we go in and we have to give these people up to 20% return on their money through what's called internal rates of return, meaning that as that property grows, they want to see 15 to 20% annualized returns on their money. Now, or we can't get it. That also puts a lot of downward strain on our projects. So now we go in and we say, okay, maybe we can go in and use preferred equity, where we get institutional equity at a fee, and we get it at even a high rate, but that high rate, we get charged a fee that maybe is 1.5% to 2%, which is very expensive, but it costs us a few $100,000, like $150,000 to $200,000. And then we go in and off that fee, we'll end up having to go in and pay them maybe 14%, 15%. So all in, with the fees and everything, we're closer to 16%. Over 20% de-risks our projects by 4%. But you have to underwrite it to see if it can afford it. And the underwriting that matters most is not the underwriting to get the project finished. Most people misunderstand this. The biggest underwriting that is the most important is the underwriting to get the asset stabilized. Finishing the project? No problem. We can underwrite projects to get them finished all day long. But can you get it stabilized? Can you get the project finished, filled with tenants, at a rent rate high enough to give you a rate of return? When you go to the bank, you can get a 75 to 80% loan to value, and you have enough equity in there where you don't have to come out of pocket with more money, what's called a cash in refinance, to get a refinance stabilized loan. And that's the big question. And so most people don't think about it this way, but we're looking at this as how can I build this at a 75% loan to value for final stabilization? And we could go in and get a 7% loan with a bank, or we can go in and instead of going through a traditional local municipal bank or an institutional bank, we can go in and get government lending. Now it takes a little bit of legwork and a little bit of expense. And every time you do this, it's going to cost you between $80,000 to $100,000, and it's going to take you at least 12 months to do. So if you're going in and you're building an asset, you have to start day one. If you're building a 20-unit, 30-unit apartment complex, you need to start day one. What is that? It's called HUD lending. Housing for Urban Development. And through Housing for Urban Development, you can go in and get a 35-year fixed rate loan. And that 35-year fixed rate loan through HUD has been our saving grace under these current economic circumstances. We went back in and we spent 12 months re-architecting and re-engineering 4 projects that was equivalent to over $250,000 that we had to come out of pocket just for the updates on our architecture and engineering. So it has to be worth it. If you're going to spend $250,000, you have to sit back and go, okay, I'm going to spend $250,000. It damn well better be worth it if I'm going to put $250,000 just into paper. And so we made sure beforehand that it was going to be worth our while to go in and make these modifications and changes. And to our benefit, we're able to go in and we do have to do a buy down at stabilization, but we can go in and on like a $15 million loan for under $100,000, we could buy that thing down to about a 4.5 to 4.7% rate, stabilized fixed-term loan for 35 years. And the good news on that is that we can go in and that loan after 1 year becomes assumable. So if we ever want to sell the property, we can also sell it with a fixed-term loan set in place. Now, most people don't want that loan, so you also have to pay attention to other external circumstances like early payout penalties, buy downs, and a lot of other stuff. And so that is for a whole different day. But just understand that the cheaper you get your debt, both for the construction, both the debt and the cost of your equity, but the third component that most people don't talk about is the debt on your stabilized lending. It's the debt on your stabilized lending that is the final icing and decorations on your cake, on your finished product, and every single development you do. But it's what you do on the front end, not the back end. It's what you do on the front end that sets you up for success on the back end. How you execute here is what makes it successful on the back end. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that's just a little finance hack under the current economic circumstances that we're in today that will help you get to the finish line and stabilize your product for you, your investors, and the institution that believed in you to ultimately make a W for everybody. For more content, more financing, and more hacks just like this, click and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Smash that thumbs up button. Give me a little bit of love and appreciation for content that'll help compound your finances and your long-term success. Comment down below, and if you're watching this a second time, put #repeat, and we'll see you next time on the other side.